franktalks.com.
And joining me now is relationship expert Frank Kermit. He is a world-renowned relationship expert. He lectures all over the world. He's published maybe 6,000 books on relationships, and he joins me right now on the Howie Silbiger Show. And I appreciate you joining me. And of course, we'll be taking your calls if you want to speak to Frank. You could call in. It's a rare opportunity. I mean, he just appeared on Oprah, so it's a very rare opportunity to be able to speak to Frank. So give us a call, 514-738-4100, extension 200. You can send us a text at 438-800-6545, and Frank will answer all your relationship questions. And well, the topic I want to talk to him about tonight was loneliness during the holidays. Hi, Frank.
Hi, Howie. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm noticing that every time I come on your show, my accolades just grow and grow and grow.
Well, because you keep doing...
I didn't realize I was just on Oprah.
You keep doing more and more amazing things, so I have to keep mentioning them.
I think I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Maybe we should wait until I actually do those things before you introduce them. You know, maybe we should wait until I actually meet Oprah Winfrey before saying that I was just on her show.
You mean you want me to actually wait for you to do stuff before I give you credit for doing it?
It might just add to your credibility as a journalist to actually report the facts, Howie. The facts.
You want the facts? All right.
Absolutely.
He's never appeared on Oprah. He's published maybe 2.5 books that 4 people have bought, and he used to have a weekly relationship seminar, which has now moved to a monthly one. There you go. There are the facts, Frank. The facts.
Actually, it's more like 10 books, not 2.5. But okay, you're on the better path here.
Fine, but Frank does do a monthly relationship seminar, and it's really worth your time. If you have problems with relationships, it's worth your time to go to the seminar and to get private coaching from Frank. Frank is an excellent life coach, and he's a great guy. So it would be worth your while to contact Frank through franktalks.com. How's that for the facts, Frank?
I think that's the better way to go. That was absolutely professional. You're getting better, Howie.
Oh, thank you. Only after 14 years of experience. You know, it's only 14 years, Frank. So
if you keep this up, you're going to get your own radio show one day.
Oh, it might happen. I'd be looking forward to that. Now, Frank, we wanted to talk about loneliness during the holidays. We're coming up to Passover, and Passover is one of those holidays where everybody gets together, the families sit together, and you have 2 Passover Seders, and pretty much, whether you're religious, non-religious, most Jews go to a Passover Seder, and but there are a lot of people out there who have nobody. Their parents are gone, they have no family, they have nothing. How are these people supposed to handle this kind of holiday? And I'm sure you see this around Christmas time too, in the non-Jewish world, where families get together, and then there's the people who are lonely and they sit at home alone. How do you handle the depression? How are people supposed to handle the depression and handle the anxiety of coming into the holiday season with nobody to celebrate with?
The answer is one that most people don't like to hear, and the answer is pre-planning. Lots of pre-planning. Look, the holidays, regardless of what holiday you celebrate, is a time when people are taking stock of their life. It's a marker, and people tend to reflect on the year that they've just experienced and look forward to the year that's coming up. When you spend the holiday alone, it can be one of the worst feelings because it's a jumble of a number of different emotions. You start thinking about the people you may have lost, the passing of a loved one, for example. You start dreading the year coming up because you realize you don't have anybody to enjoy your life with. Maybe you do have family, but they're too far away for you to celebrate anything with. Maybe you've just recently moved and you don't have very close friends in the area. The key is not to look at this one holiday as the be-all and end-all. In fact, one of the best pieces of advice that I could give anybody listening right now, use this as motivation, and now you have a year to plan your next holiday. So you're about to go into Passover, and this Passover turns out to be a very lonely one for you. Write down everything you're feeling. Just journal it. Use it as motivation because you have a year until next Passover, and you can start planning now to do things, to put yourself in social environments, to meet somebody new, to start setting things up, maybe save up for a vacation so you can travel to be with somebody who you want to be with during Passover, so that next year's Passover will be better than this year's.
And do you think that are there people out there who actually enjoy being alone? That go into the holiday season and say, "Oh, thank God I don't have to deal with anybody." You know, for
absolutely
for 30 years
absolutely.
I dealt with people. Now, thank God I could just clear my head. I don't have to deal with anybody.
Listen, it's all about what you associate pleasure to and what you associate pain to. For some people, dealing with other people is a form of pain. It is a source of lack of pleasure, and maybe being alone is actually something that they look forward to. For some people, being in an environment where they're surrounded by people when they themselves just aren't in the mood of celebrating doesn't help matters for them. Now, for some people, it does. For some people, being around other people when they're feeling down helps bring them out of that funk. Others, it doesn't help. If anything, it just reminds them of just how miserable they are, and they are better off being alone. You have to know yourself. You have to know what your own personal boundaries are. Not everybody does, but what a wonderful opportunity to find out if you're going to be alone for the holidays. Use it as a learning experience.
514-738-4100 extension 200 is the number to call. Frank Kermit is on Skype with us. That way we can take your calls. Frank Kermit's on Skype with us, and he'll answer any relationship questions you have. Because Frank doesn't only deal with loneliness in the holidays. Frank deals with the whole variety of relationship questions. So call Frank and call us right now. 514-738-4100 extension 200, and ask Frank anything about relationships. He is the expert, the world-renowned expert, and you are world-renowned, Frank.
Yeah, actually I am. I'm Canada's most internationally recognized relationship coach because of some of the work that I've done in the past is actually seen and read on all the different continents around the world. I'm the person who helps structure support groups for men called Layers. I wrote the book on how to manage one, and if you do a search on the internet for Layers, you're going to see my handiwork in the form of a couple of documents I wrote on the majority of those websites. And one of the other things we can talk about is how some people end up alone over the holidays because of a choice they might have made that might be stigmatizing for their community. So it might be a matter of who they've married. It could be a matter of some of the choices they've made. Maybe they chose to be more outspoken against their own community, doing something good for their community, but something that isn't always appreciated. And they might find themselves alone over the holidays. And this is something that's very real. Sometimes the best of intentions can truly lead to a very lonely path.
All right, so give us some examples of people who do these kind of things, Frank.
Maybe it could be somebody who stood against the community for a greater good, calling out someone who maybe was abusive to others in their care. And, of course, every community doesn't want their what would be considered private business to be touted in the media. But, unfortunately, sometimes that's what it takes to clean up a particular mess.
Definitely. So you could see that, like in the Quebec Society, with the Charbonneau Commission, and with the corruption that's happening in the Quebec Society, and the whistleblowers coming up and talking about corruption in the Quebec Society. You could see it in the Canadian Society with the whistleblowers talking about corruption in the government of the Canadian Society, and you go into the microcosm of different communities, different ethnic communities. There are different groups in each ethnic community that get up and speak out about things that are happening in their community too. That may not be so pleasant for the community to hear. But,
exactly. So the very community that you would want to embrace during the holidays may not be there for you. Sometimes it could be simply a matter that the person that you've chosen to be your life partner, your soulmate, might not be someone that gets along with your family. And the next thing you know, they're not spending the holidays with you anymore. It could be a really lonely time for some people. It's a very difficult time. In my practice, I see the gamut, where I'm not dealing with bad people. I may not even be dealing with people who even made bad choices, but the choices that they made brought on a situation they had no control over, and now they're alone.
Now, what about people who went through divorces just before the holiday, and the children of these people? How do people prepare their children who had just gone through a vicious divorce? And most divorces end up being vicious. Let's be honest, there aren't very many amicable divorces. Most divorces end up being mean and cruel and vicious to each other, and the children always get caught in between when there's children. How do you prepare your children that are suddenly they had a family, now they have half a family? How do you prepare them for the holiday season where the holiday is going to be extremely different for them than it ever was before?
Let's look at it as a period of transition. There are certain things you have to do regardless of what the situation is, whether you're dealing with a death in the family, which of course is a form of transition, and whether you might be dealing with a divorce. You're always dealing with a significant change. So there are certain basics here. Number one, you always remind the children that they are not responsible for anything that's going on right now. It's very important because what children do, how children make sense of the world, is that they assume that everything that's happening around them is of a direct result of the kids themselves.
Now, when you talk Frank, let me just interrupt you for 1 second. When you talk about children, what age group are we talking about here? Because I think teenagers, young teenagers, 13, 14, 15, up to 16 years old, probably think the same way. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So remember, as children, their survival technique, their ability to learn and absorb, always has to do with the fact that they are the center of the universe. And I know that sounds like an exaggeration. Psychologically speaking, they see themselves as the center of that universe, so that everything around them has to be an extension of them. So when mom and dad are breaking up, and especially if mom and dad, because they're struggling themselves to deal with all these negative, intense emotions, sometimes might take it out on the kids in ways that they don't intend. Why? They're human. They're doing the best they can with what they have, and they just may not have the coping skills. So a kid might be thinking, well, mom and dad are breaking up because I didn't put my toys away, and mommy and daddy got really mad, and then because they were so mad, they ended up fighting each other. The child doesn't understand that, no, mom and dad were already mad at each other, and they just probably blew up out of proportion to a situation that the kid happened to be involved in. Very important. First and foremost, you got to make sure the children understand. You have to say it as many times as it takes. Kids, this divorce is nothing about you. You did not cause this divorce. You're not playing a role in this divorce. And something very important, don't involve the kids in the divorce. Don't tell your child, I should never have married your mother, I should never have married your father. At that point, you're involving them into an adult role into that relationship. That is not their job. That is not their responsibility. You don't involve the kids in. You don't try to turn the child against one or the other parent. We have to remember, anything you say negative about your now ex, your child is half of your ex. And no matter how you justify it, saying, well, I hate my ex, I don't hate you. Your child understands, well, I'm half of that other person that you hate, so you're going to hate that half of me. You can't play it both ways here. It doesn't work. If you want to make sure that your kids are going to end up in my therapist's office, keep it up, because that's exactly what's going to happen.
514-738-4100, extension 200 is the number to call if you have any questions for Frank Kermit. He is a world-renowned, internationally renowned relationship specialist. He is a therapist. He's the kind of guy that you go to when you have problems with relationships. He's the kind of guy you want to talk to. He's the kind of guy you want to get to know. That is Frank Kermit. And give us a call if you have any relationship questions. 514-738-4100, extension 200. Daniel Inayatzadeh is in studio with me, and he has a question for you, Frank.
Hi, Frank. I just wanted to ask
Hello.
you were just talking about children and how they're affected by divorces, separations, and whatnot. How much communication do you generally encourage with children, and at what ages should we be talking to kids, during the process of a potential separation or fight or divorce?
All right. First of all, if it's just about a fight, your kids don't need to be involved at all.
Right.
You're adults, you're grown-ups, you're going to fight. Anybody who says, no, a perfect marriage is a marriage where nobody fights. No, that's a marriage that lacks complete and utter lack of communication. You're going to fight. You don't involve the kids in it. You do not turn your child into your sounding board or your therapist. You only decide to tell a child anything in terms of what's going on in your troubled marriage or the dissolution of that marriage when a change in the living arrangements is imminent. If somebody is no longer going to be living in the household, that's when you have to take your kid aside and say, look, and you have to, it's always best to do it together.
But Frank, when the kids notice that the parents are screaming at each other, when the kids notice that the parents are fighting and fighting and fighting, I mean, it's got to affect the kid before the parents get to the point where they're breaking up and they're moving out. These kids have got to know that there's a problem before that. You're living in the house with them.
Children can sense that kind of thing.
A key element is this. A key element in this is that you shouldn't be arguing and screaming that much when you know the kids are at home. You should at least try to limit it, and you try to fight, or you simply say, look, we can't discuss this now. Let's discuss this tomorrow when we have some time alone. If you don't have the time, make the time. And yes, in some cases, of course, the kids are going to know that the parents are happy and they're fighting. But an argument is part of marriage life. Okay, you're going to be married, you're going to argue. It's that simple. The question is, when it's getting to the point where you're losing control and you're screaming and you're yelling and you start getting verbally abusive by calling each other names or starting to swear at each other, that's when it's the parents' responsibility to say, okay, let's take a break here. Let's stop. This is going out of hand. This is getting too far. Let's move out of this. And then you take it back. What children need to know is that a fight does not necessarily equal a divorce. So if you see that your child is aware of the two of you fighting, that's when you also have to sit them down and say, look, mommies and daddies do fight, okay? Just because parents fight doesn't mean we don't love each other. It just means that sometimes we fight the same way that you fight with your best friends, but you're still best friends.
Right, of course. But at the end of the day, parents who are going to get divorced, people who are breaking up a marriage, aren't best friends at the end of the day. That's it. You know, it's over.
Sometimes there are separations.
No, listen, I disagree.
Divorce.
When you have children, you have something in common with somebody else, and if your children are the most important thing to you,
are you telling me that couples that break up, that couples that get into huge fights and break up, are amicable to each other afterwards? Come on, you get a court judgment. You have the kids 2 days a week. She has the kids 2 days a week. You move the kids back and forth between two homes, and the twains never meet. Come on, that's the majority of breakups, isn't it?
It can be for some couples. However, there are couples who do have amicable breakups in the sense that they know that the marriage is not going to work out. They know they need to split up. They also know that they're going to be involved in one another's life for the rest of their lives. When that kid who, let's say, for the purposes of this example, if that 15-year-old kid who's right in the middle of this divorce, that 15-year-old kid one day is going to be a, let's say, 33-year-old person who may be getting married. Both of those parents, regardless of whether or not they may like each other anymore, are going to be invited to that wedding. And whoever is involved, whoever's the new partner in either parent's life, may or may not be attending that wedding as well. When you date someone that has a child with somebody else, that's it. That person's ex is always going to be involved in their life, whether you like it or not. That's what it is. So you're better off making an effort to be amicable. And you don't even do it for just the child. You do it for the fact that if I have to deal with somebody, I may as well make an effort to be amicable about it. I'm not saying we have to be best friends. But the fact is we have a past together. We have a child together. The most important thing for most people is their children. And if you share that in common, I got news for you. A lot of the people that you're going to be dating are not going to care the same way about the benefiting your child, raising your child like your ex will. You and your ex have that in common, that nobody else will care about your children as much as you will.
All right, Frank, we have about 2 minutes left to the interview. Tell me, give me some tips for people who are sitting home alone this holiday. What do you do this year? How do you prepare yourself for next year?
All right, start writing down everything you hate about being alone for the holidays. Start writing down everything you think you would love about having people around. One of the things you might realize is that the choices that you made caused you to end up being alone for the holidays. Maybe you didn't open yourself up enough. Maybe you weren't social enough. Maybe when people invited you out to social events throughout the year, you never took it because you're just not a social person. Well, if you don't want to be alone over the holidays, you might need to start making changes to your own behavior patterns and to your own social skills. Maybe you need to develop some social skills and learn how to go out there for it. You can't wait for other people to save you. You have to be willing to go out there and build a life, a social life. Make the effort to find love if that's something that interests you. You got to start remembering, yes, even if this holiday season is a horrible one and it's a lonely one, figure out what it is you would have liked to have done over the holidays and start working towards those goals, because you have another year before that holiday comes up again, and at least you can plan for next year to be better than this year.
Frank Kermit, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Appreciate it. Frank Kermit,
Thank you, Howie. Always a pleasure.
Frank Kermit is a relationship expert, and you could visit his website, franktalks.com, where you get all the information about Frank Kermit, plus you can order his books and get information on his seminars and everything else. Frank, when's your next seminar?
I have something coming up on Thursday, March the 28th. It's a 2-hour Ask Me Anything. You pick the topic, $10 a person.
And where's it located?
At my office, 7505 Sherbrooke Street West, Suite A.
And you can reserve to that through franktalks.com. So go to franktalks.com for all the information about Frank Kermit. Buy his books. Support Frank Kermit. He is really a great relationship specialist and a lovely man. So support Frank Kermit and start emailing Oprah and tell Oprah you want to see Frank Kermit on Oprah. That's it. It's time to get him on Oprah. I know I said he was just on Oprah, but he really wasn't. So we want to get Frank on Oprah. So start sending Oprah emails saying, Oprah, here's a guy you got to speak to, Frank Kermit. She's going to be in Montreal. Start picketing in front of the Bell Center and tell Oprah Frank Kermit is the man. He is the man that has to be on your show. I'm Howie Silbiger, the Howie Silbiger Show on 1650 AM CJRS Radio, Shalom, Montreal.
Need help with love, sex, dating, or relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating, and relationships? Visit franktalks.com. Need help with your relationships.